G'day guys. This is a video on HMB. I've been asked a recent question about it by somebody on my recent live stream. I've been asked outside, the YouTube sort of environment from other people that sort of have claimed that it actually is better than creatine when it comes to performance. So you don't need creatine. So it's an argument that I've been given. In one of my earlier live streams going back for some time, somebody claimed that HMB is superior to leucine. And in this case, this other person was sort of asking, what do I think about it and stuff like that. And basically, I just told him that I think that it's an expensive product that you don't really need. I mean, I don't even recommend leucine or creatine unless, creatine only for people who are actually athletes. Most of the rest of the community doesn't need it. As long as you're eating enough, most of people in our carnivore community, as long as you're eating enough protein, you should get enough creatine for your mild movements and activities. And you should get plenty of, leucine from the meat, if you've got a meat heavy diet like I do and many others in the community, to basically build muscle, even not going to the gym. So if you want to go to the gym, you go there to amplify those effects. Where, for instance, I've just built my muscles. I do once a week exercise, weight bearing exercises, and it's about 15, 20 minutes. That's it. I don't do any more than that. So call me lazy, but that's it. And the rest is just some walking back and forth from work, or on the weekends, long strolls or stuff like that. That's pretty much me, So when it comes to the supplement industry, I'm, in this space. Beyond taurine, most of the other supplements, I've got some general knowledge. I wouldn't consider myself an expert. I would rather bring on, either on a live stream or have some sort of get together with Jonathan. So you've seen him on the Eurasia live streams where he's come on and answered certain questions and stuff like that. He's more of an expert. He basically consults in terms of body composition and bodybuilding. So he actually competes in bodybuilding. He knows the supplement industry. He knows the products, what's good, what's not, all these sort of things. So, I usually will give people a generalized reply or view and all that. I'm not an expert. And I probably make mistakes in the way I explain things, or maybe, I create more ambiguity than is good, because I just don't understand the products as well and don't have the precision. And going into this research, I even discovered that there's another breakdown product of leucine that I wasn't aware of, that they make supplements out of. So there's the HMB, and then there's the caproic acid, which is α-HICA. So I wasn't even aware of that one. So there you go. I learned something when it comes to these metabolites of leucine. So there are these sort of things that are out there. There's also, he asked me about the calcium one and the free acid one and stuff like that. So there are two there. I've got a study here that is actually a randomized control study, unlike most of the industry study that's observational, meta-analysis and stuff like that, which are very, problematic to say the least. They're making up a lot of assumptions, or let's say they're pushing certain narratives, which supports their bottom line, so to speak. So it is important for that area of people, because at the end of the day, some of those people are my subscribers. I said to myself, well, I mean, okay, it's not heart attacks, it's not cancer, it's not all these major diseases that I've sort of focus on for my channel. It's bodybuilders. I mean, yeah, you know what I mean. It's not my specialty. Yes, I do some stuff in regards to that sort of segment, because I do have some young people that do subscribe to me, about a quarter of my subscriber list, and a number of them are involved in the sort of this sort of space, and so they enjoy it, and I actually encourage it, because I think that having greater muscular and musculoskeletal strength is a great thing going into old age. I think it's really important that people have the strength to be able to get out of a chair in old age. And you're only going to achieve that if you actually increase your, at young, because when you're young, you can actually build up far more myonuclei. And by doing that, you'll basically be in a much better position later on to, if you want to build muscle in older age, you can do it, because you've got far more there, capacity. So it's really important to encourage young people to be more physical, because they will have major benefits in older age. So, I'm not going to discourage people. I'm the first to encourage people to do more physical movements and stuff like that. It's really important. But at the same time, I'm not going to claim that I'm an expert when it comes I mean, when it comes to that industry, there's a lot of peptides out there, a lot of supplements. It's a myriad of stuff. I wouldn't know half the stuff that's out there, or have any idea about, their pharmacokinetics and what they do and how they affect the body in any way. But, I did had a cursory look in the past when it came to HMB, and looking at the contradictions in a lot of the literature that was there, some claiming one thing, that they used to be industry funded, and the other ones claiming the opposite, and they tend to be non-industry funded. And I'm going, well, there's probably nothing in it. It's no different than people just eating protein foods that have got leucine. They're going to get the same anabolic effect. They're going to get similar expressions of mTOR1, of IGF-1 and stuff like that. So, I mean, I couldn't see the value of spending. I mean, you're buying expensive steaks, you're eating that, so you're getting plenty of leucine. So where's the extra benefit? I can understand a leucine supplement or a HMB supplement for an older person, but even in that case, it's still leucine is no less anti-catabolic than HMB. So I can't see the benefit of the extra cost for an older person. You've got to target your market, and I'm going, well, older people are going to have, may on the general level not have the same capacity as working people. So obviously for them, you want a good supplement that actually works, does the job. And leucine and taurine as an amino transporter and a mild myostatin inhibitor to amplify the effects of leucine for these people, older people, is all they really need in that regard. So and the other benefits they get from taurine, obviously, the neurological effects, the general regulation of a whole lot of systems, which is important, especially if they're not eating sufficient food sources of taurine. So that's the way I sort of viewed it in that regard, and that's how I've sort of promoted it. But, obviously, when people keep on asking me about HMB, I'm forced now to look into it a bit more carefully and ignore the old studies that I looked at, which were just observational and didn't really tell me much. They were too contradictory, and I made conclusions where really I should have looked into it a bit more carefully and see, is there any better literature? And what I've done is I've found a randomized control study, which is good. And Stuart Phillips, the guy that promotes the protein stuff, he's in it. He's a member of that. And there's a couple of industry blokes in there as well. There was a bit of industry funding. And that is really interesting. So nobody can claim that, oh, Harry, you made sure you picked people. No, there's some industry people in there, and the findings will be very interesting. So, there are, and also when it comes to the calcium one and the free form one, there's a couple of issues there as well. So that certain people are finding, because that person did ask me about the two types, what do I think? And I just didn't really have an answer for that. So, here goes. So let me just share my screen. So we'll first look at one of the supplement makers sort of, things that they provide, and then we'll cover the study. Okay, so this is one of the supplement maker type thing. So they just tell us that basically what it is, that it's a natural metabolite of the amino acid leucine. It's a breakdown product, actually. I think the body actually produces about 4%, I think it is, or something like that, as a breakdown product. If I'm wrong, don't kill me. It's just I can't remember it. It was in one of the meta-analysis that I read ages ago, and I think it was 4%, but I could be wrong. Anyway, so we've basically got, you can find it in grapefruit, alfalfa, cat. You can actually find in very small amounts, plus eggs, very small amounts. The human body has the ability to synthesize HMB in the muscles and liver, where it is then converted to HMB-Ca and a precursor of cholesterol that is essential for the creation of repair of cell membranes, blah, 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 blah. So, and you don't need much. The body does it from leucine. There's a rate limiting amount. So putting more is not going to actually increase at all in any regard. And we'll see it in the studies anyway. So, and that's why the body just produces that amount as a breakdown product of leucine. So it's reported to be involved in protein synthesis. Many athletes and bodybuilders take it as a dietary supplement to enhance performance and training. And that's probably where that guy was actually telling me, oh, it enhances performance better than creatine, and was giving me a hard time. But anyway, so, and this is some of the other stuff that the International Sports Nutritional Position, the authorship is, again, expert opinion. Increases lean body mass and functionality in elderly sedentary populations. That's important, but so does leucine. And there's research to show that. And I'll put right up there at the end of the video, I'll put the leucine, which shows that even in a fasted state, leucine will basically increase protein synthesis. That's another thing bodybuilders need to realize. You don't need insulin is, you only need insulin signaling, and you don't need much of it. Even in a fasted state where insulin is nearly in the toilet, minor signaling, there's a difference between signaling and over amplification. Over amplifying something doesn't actually mean that it does more. It's ridiculous. Like, that's what people think. More is best. No, it's not. That's why bodybuilders are dying in their 30s and 40s, because they're doing all these contraindicated things like insulin, steroids, and many other things. So, that's pretty much nonsense in that regard. But, all these other claims that it makes, cachexia and stuff like that for people that are with AIDS, cancer, and rheumatoid arthritis and all that. Well, you know what? So does leucine. Do all these things that they claim. Inhibits muscle protein breakdown. Well, so does leucine. It's anti-catabolic. Increases protein synthesis. Well, so does leucine. So they're not telling me anything else, that basically this is sort of the industry sort of stuff, but your product is much more expensive. So in my opinion, you haven't made a case. Anyway, so this was accepted. So I was able to get this study, luckily. And so medicine and science in sports and exercise. So it's leucine metabolites do not enhance training-induced performance or muscle thickness, because that's what everybody else claims. Oh, you know, proves performance, proves muscle thickness, you know, so it by reducing breakdown and stuff like that, and does all these wonderful things. Well, you know, really? And Stuart Phillips is in this, and he's he's the guy from McMaster's University in Canada. He's the protein guy. He's not an idiot. He knows he knows his shit. And the nice thing is the only reason I'm using this study is because it is a randomized control study. I don't like all these observational pieces of crap. You know, I like real stuff. Okay. So I'm not going to go through this, you know, leucine metabolites, a-HICA, which is one that I wasn't aware of. Now I know it. And then you've got basically the calcium one, and you've got the free acid one. Okay. So I'll show a bit of that. I'll discuss this a bit about, because that guy was interested in that information. Has been proposed to augment resistance training induced changes in body composition and performance. Purpose of the aim is to conduct a double-blinded, so it's a double-blinded, so even the placebo people are getting magnesium stearate. They don't know, nobody knows what they're getting. So it's a double-blinded, placebo-controlled. This is best quality stuff, so nobody basically knows what they're getting. That's how you're supposed to do research, not the other sort of Mickey Mouse stuff. Controlled pragmatic trials to evaluate the effects of off-the-shelf leucine metabolite supplements of a-HICA, HMB, the free acid type, and the HMB calcium one on resistance training induced changes in muscle thickness and performance. Method: 40 men were randomizedly assigned to receive the different types. Okay, as you can see, blah, 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 and the placebo, PLA is placebo. So just so people know what placebo is. So PLA is basically the people that got the training program consisted of a whole body, so thrice of weekly resistance training for 8 weeks, 7 exercise sessions, 3 to 4 sets per session at 70 to 81 RM. Skeletal muscle thickness by ultrasound. So they use ultrasound to assess that. Performance measured, and blood measures creatine kinase, insulin-like growth factor, growth hormone, cortisol, total testosterone. Okay, so they took a lot of measurements for a number of things that people are always interested in. The bodybuilding industry were evaluated at baseline and at the end of week 4 and 8. Results: time-dependent changes were observed, blah, 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 and no significant between group or by time by group interactions were observed. Conclusions: no leucine metabolite resulted in any ergogenic effects on any outcome variables. Supplementation with leucine metabolites, the ones that we're talking about, is not a supplemental strategy that improves muscle growth and strength development in young adult men. Got it, guys? So, oh, hate when it does that. Okay, I can't actually get it. But anyway, I was trying to highlight that. That's the problem when they've put it over the damn or under, and yeah, whatever. Anyway, that's annoying. So this will do. Pay for this, don't I? Why isn't it working? I'll have to complain because my subscription is still there. It finishes at the end of the year. Anyway, supplementation with these ones in that. So let's look at some of the information. So that's just a bit of a, just telling people that it's part of the central BCAA, so to speak, all this sort of stuff. If people want to read it, you know, I'll add it to my links. So it'll be in my drive so people can download it. So, and it basically says better analysis indicates small effects of HMB on markers of muscle damage, endocrine response, and training-induced changes in muscle mass and strength, while other analysis do not support this conclusion. To our knowledge, there has been no randomized trial to investigate the effects of commercially available forms of these compounds on muscle thickness and the selected performance outcomes. So this is basically it, guys. You know, so all these other ones that are up here, industry ones, showed, oh, things are better. Some independent ones showed, nah, that doesn't seem to be the case. This is, in our view, exceptionally important as consumers are taking these supplements direct from the shelf, often based on claims stemming from research. Thus, we undertake a pragmatic, controlled, double-blind, randomized trial to compare commercially available supplements of these three on resistance training, induced changes on muscle thickness and performance. Okay, so people can check out the methods. I covered some of the other stuff earlier, so I'm not going to read this whole thing out. People can actually read it themselves if they're interested. And we'll just quickly go down, 32 pages. So you can understand I'm not going to read 32 pages. Okay, in that regard. And according to food records, there were no differences between the groups. Baseline difference occurred baseline at the end of the study in dietary intake. So pretty much they started at the same level. And we've got a bit of a discussion here going. Our study in the fur is the first to directly compare the efficacy of off-the-shelf commercially available forms of leucine metabolites versus a placebo and resistance training induced adaptation performance and muscle thickness in young men consuming a balanced diet with sufficient protein intake. So these people were taking sufficient protein intake, which means they were getting sufficient leucine. That's why there wasn't much difference, because the leucine was doing the job. Supplements weren't. So, and we'll see the results. No differences were observed between supplements and placebo in anthropometric measurements, muscle thickness, blood markers, or muscle strength and power. We observed training-induced effects for all performance-related variables, including muscle thickness, and was comparable to investigation of similar duration and with a similar group of trainees. Anyway, covered that point. There was one other point down here, if I remember where exactly it was, because I do want to get to... come on. Yep, okay. There's this part. As you can see, conflict of interest. FJT withholds a position as technical manager for Body Temp LDA, a company that sells HMB-A, the calcium one, and HMB, the free acid one. So as you know, there is somebody's involved from the industry in this. So basically they acknowledge all this sort of stuff, the results of the study, clearly, honest, and without fabrication, falsification, or inappropriate data manipulation. They did not manipulate the data like they do in all those other studies. You know, oh, we adjust the data. We just can't accept reality. What we observed, we'll adjust it because we know best. We're the experts. Yes, bullshit is what I call. So S&P reports having received funding on honoraries and travel expenses from the US National Dairy Council, research funding from PepsiCo, and research funding from Dairy Farmers of Canada. This study was financed by the Interdisciplinary Centre for the Study of Human Performance. All supplements were freely donated by Body Temp LDA. The results of the present study do not constitute endorsement by the American College of Sports Medicine. So as you can see, they've stated their conflict of interest. They've said we haven't adjusted our data. We've done nothing of the sort. We've left the stuff to stand on its merit. So at page 27, you can actually see the way they randomized and they allocated things and stuff like that. Okay, just so people are aware. And so let's look at some of the stuff. So here we're looking at muscle thickness. And this is a big range. That's actually the smallest range. So that, you know, when you actually look at the range, when the further away they are, like here, that's a big distance. That's telling you basically that people fell within that range quite a bit. It's the same here. That's a tighter at the top. This is a much looser at the top, which means that most people are probably going to be falling in here. That's why they didn't see much difference. And HICA was actually even lower than the placebo. And so was the free acid one, where the calcium one actually performed much closer, and seems a few people may have been a bit better than the placebo. A few people, but statistically unimportant, because the majority of people, see the line is behind the means. All the lines are behind the means of the placebo, which on general speaking, you know, seems like it's a bust for the supplements, and the placebo gets it. That's muscle thickness. And that's in the rectus femoris. And vastus lateralis is, you know me, I do have a bit of mild dyslexia from a young child, but they do say dyslexic children are much more intelligent, a bit like high functioning autistic kids. So, but that's one of my weaknesses, and you just have to persevere with my way that I express. Even here, you can actually see, compared to the placebo, free acid one, nope. Again, HIC, it seems slightly better, the calcium one from placebo, but only slightly better in this muscle group. So just keep that in mind. And the range was, look how wide it is. That is a big, wide range. Here it's actually tighter, which means that it's, you know, the tighter these are, the closer they are together, it means that the information is much more meaningful. The further apart they are, it means that some people really responded better than others. There could be genetics. So some may, on genetics, do slightly better. But it just could be one of those, you know, there may be other confounding variables in that person's general lifestyle that also may be having an effect. So we don't know. You know, you can only do so much in a randomized control. If you really want to control things to the nth degree, you've got to lock them up for their whole life and all that, as Bart would say. But still, you know, when bars are very wide like that, it just tells you, you know, the range is quite wide. You know, and you can actually see even the means, the sort of means between them, there's not much there. I mean, even the placebo there is doing better, or maybe just on this muscle group, you know, but I mean, even here, very little. Why would you bother money-wise? Just eat a steak. So when we're looking at cortisol, you know, not much difference. When we look at creatine kinase, not much difference. When we're looking at growth hormone, there's not much difference. The only difference here is between these two. So between the the HICA was much lower than the placebo. It seemed to be negatively affecting the actual growth hormone, which is surprising for a supplement maker. And the free form in this case did better than the calcium one, more closer to the levels of the placebo. So in the other part, we saw the sort of, when we were looking, remember, up here at the muscle thickness, it was the other way around. When we're looking at the growth hormone, it's the other way around. So it's quite interesting. IGF-1, there's not much difference. IGF-1, much better on the placebo. So you're actually, these, I'm not saying that they're inhibiting IGF-1, but they're not doing as well, or maybe they're having an indirect inhibitory effect. Possibly, don't know, but still, there's not much significance here. We're talking about, I mean, 300 to 350, we're talking about, give or take here or there. It's not significant. Like, it's not like it jumped up to here to 600, like double or something. So, pretty much nothing really there either. When we're looking at these sort of things, there's a baseline, the participants, their weights and stuff like that, hand grip, not much difference between them. So, yep, seems like all the other ones, but only the calcium one seems a bit better, but not much, At the end of the day, they did start with a higher weight, so they would have started with a slightly higher strength. So, pretty much not a dramatic difference there in the row. So that's just other baseline participant dietary intake, what they were taking. People were interested. They're on a mixed, like most athletes nowadays. So there's power to strength measurements throughout the protocol. So we're looking at there's a placebo on the bottom, and these are the other ones. And when we're looking at after all these weeks, it's not much difference from the beginning to there in terms of the, that's the height, sorry. God, power. Even there, we're not talking, look at the difference. Where they started, they more or less finished. It's so minor. Nothing there. Bench press, actually placebo did better than calcium one in that regard, but did start from a better baseline, start from a higher baseline. So obviously there, if you're starting from a higher baseline, even here, the placebo and the free form did much better than the other two. So again, there's nothing there. There's nothing to be seen. The differences are very minor. You can see that back squats. So more or less started the same. And the calcium one's actually lower than, and the placebo's done better than all of them. Back squats, I mean, 1 RM. So you're not, and even here, again, starting slightly higher, but nothing major, nothing major at all. So as you can see, this is a randomized control study, and we're basically not seeing any significant stuff. Nothing to write home to mummy about and say, "Oh, well, I found this great thing that's going to make me a superstar, mummy." No, it's not. There's nothing there. There's just really nothing there. And I mean, I don't train. That's why I've got this thing on, just so I can show you. I mean, my muscles. Look at comparison to my head size and the muscles. I'm 56 years old, guys. You know, I didn't have muscles like that. They used to be about down here, you know, like normal 56-year-olds. And now with animal foods, look at the muscle size, you know, and, you know, the wideness of my arms and stuff like that. And that's just meat. That's leucine, taurine. That's that, you know, the myostatin inhibition from taurine, the leucine from the animal foods. You know, you look at those African guys, you know, the Maasai that go out, they're all these big muscles. Remember I showed you those photos last time? You think they go to a gym? All that pumping, all that knocking back supplements. And they don't even have the genetics like many of the Europeans have, because we've got some of the, you know, the stockier, more muscular Neanderthal genes. You know, and I tend to be on the higher side. So it's much easier to build that wider, bigger frame type thing. So, I mean, you know, I don't see it. You know, if basically there was some like significant difference between a placebo, which is, and that was magnesium stearate that they used it for the placebo group, just for people to, if they were asking, you know, at most it probably doesn't gives them less cramps. But really, there's nothing there for it. So I think it's a bust. I think it's a waste of money. And I cannot recommend people waste their money on such a supplement in that regard. And if they were going to use the supplement, I would probably go for the calcium one, for the simple fact that it seems to do better when it comes to thickness compared to the others, and do on a number of other things. So that's probably the only thing they'll go. So let's say I couldn't buy a supplement like Leucine, it wasn't available, and I had to use like one of these two, I'd go for the HMB calcium one rather than the free acid one. That'd be the only difference that I'd go. Definitely wouldn't go for that α-HICA. That seems to be much less in terms of doesn't seem to be as good as the others, you know. But the placebo in most cases was either the better or equal. And so generally speaking, just my recommendation is eat a steak, eat another steak, and eat a third steak, and enjoy the magic of animal foods, and don't waste your money on powders, because powders do not have a lot of the other peptides, a lot of the other important factors that animal foods have in there, the other micronutrients and many other things. You know, because, you know, if you just live on powders, you'd have to go and get a mineral supplement, a vitamin supplement, all that. And a lot of those have a lot of issues in absorption, a lot of issues with interactions and all sorts of problems with them, which this video is focusing on something different. I'm not going to go into those. That's for another day. So really, guys, the ultimate way to build big freaking muscles is eat your fucking meat. Anyway, see you guys.